You ever wonder how a world war actually starts? Is it some grand strategic decision made in a war room? Or is it something way smaller, something almost accidental? Today, we're going to dig into how a single spark can set the entire world on fire. We'll look at the anatomy of crises from the past to understand a really serious warning about where we are right now. Okay, let's get into it.
Now, that line isn't from a blockbuster movie trailer. No, that's a direct quote from the Council on Foreign Relations, one of the most respected foreign policy think tanks on the planet. And in their annual survey of global experts, they have never sounded this worried about what's coming.
So why? Why all the alarm bells? What is it about this moment that has everyone so on edge? Well, to really get a handle on the dangers of today, we have to look back. We need to understand the mechanics of catastrophe, because history, it gives us the blueprint.
And our first stop is the flashpoint that kicked off the 20th century's first massive disaster. This is the ultimate example of how pure chaos, dumb luck, and a series of just unbelievable mistakes can change the world forever.
The scene is Sarajevo. The year is 1914, and this city is just simmering with tension. You've got rising Serbian nationalism rubbing up against the rule of the giant Austro-Hungarian Empire. So when the Archduke, the heir to the throne, decides to visit, a lot of people see it as a provocation. You can just feel the resentment in the air. It's the perfect atmosphere for something to go very, very wrong.
So just look at this chain of events. It's almost comical if it weren't so tragic. At 10:10 in the morning, the first assassination attempt fails. A bomb literally bounces off the Archduke's car. He's shaken, but he continues with his day. About an hour later, after giving a speech, the motorcade gets going again. But here's the fatal mistake. Nobody told the driver the route had been changed for safety. He takes a wrong turn, and as he tries to back the car up, it stalls. I mean, what are the odds? It stalls directly in front of another one of the assassins, Gavrilo Princip, who had probably just given up and was grabbing a sandwich. He can't believe his luck. He pulls out his pistol, fires 2 shots, and the rest is history. That one moment lights a fuse that burns across the entire planet.
And that's the key, right? The assassination wasn't some brilliant plan. It was a clumsy, chaotic mess that succeeded by pure, tragic chance. This is what we call the accidental spark. It's that completely unexpected event that lands in a global system that's already a tinderbox, just waiting for a match.
But here's the thing. Sparks aren't always accidents. Sometimes they're carefully created, not by assassins on a street corner, but by policymakers in fancy offices. And that brings us to our second case, the Suez Crisis of 1956. This is a perfect example of a totally different kind of catalyst, what we'll call the man-made spark.
This wasn't one wrong turn in a car. This was a whole series of diplomatic wrong turns. It starts when the U.S. tells Egypt's leader Nasser, "Nope, you can't have our weapons." So what does he do? He turns to the Soviets. Then Washington pulls the plug on funding for a massive, crucial dam project. So Nasser, furious, retaliates. He seizes the Suez Canal, a waterway that is the absolute lifeblood of European trade. That move triggers a secret plot and invasion by Britain, France, and Israel, and the whole thing ends in a bizarre diplomatic meltdown where the United States actually sided with the Soviet Union against its own closest allies to force them to back down. Just a total mess.
And this historical analysis just nails it. It says that American policy didn't just fail to prevent the crisis, it actually created the crisis. These diplomatic blunders literally rolled out the red carpet for the Soviet Union to become a major power in the Middle East, a reality that shaped the world for decades.
And this gives us our second big idea, the man-made spark. See, unlike the random bullet in Sarajevo, this is a conflict born from a chain reaction of bad decisions and policy failures. It just goes to show you that bad diplomacy can be every bit as explosive as a bomb.
So, okay, we have 2 blueprints for how a global crisis can explode, the accidental spark and the man-made one. Now, these aren't just fascinating stories from history books, they're patterns. And here's the terrifying part. If you look at our world right now, you can see both of these blueprints being sketched out in real time.
Which brings us right back to that chilling warning from the Council on Foreign Relations. Now that we're armed with these historical patterns, let's take a look at the map of today's biggest dangers.
This table shows what the experts call Tier 1 risks. In plain English, these are the threats they think are not only most likely to happen, but would also have a huge destabilizing impact. And look at them. Every single one is a potential Sarajevo, or a potential Suez, a miscalculation in Ukraine, a direct confrontation between Iran and Israel, an accident in the Taiwan Strait. Any one of these could be the spark.
And the fact that there are 5 conflicts in this top tier, that's a record for this survey. That's why the alarm bells are just screaming.
So how does today really stack up against the past? Well, back then you had a tense world of rigid alliances and nationalism, basically waiting for one domino to fall. Today we have a world of intense competition between major powers, but instead of one potential spark, we have multiple flashpoints, all glowing red-hot at the very same time.
And you can see these historical echoes everywhere you look. The war in Ukraine is a textbook case of a regional conflict sucking in global powers. Tensions around Taiwan? That is a classic accidental spark scenario. One wrong move, one collision at sea, could trigger a catastrophic war between nuclear powers. In the Middle East? Well, it remains a powder keg of rivalries, the perfect environment for either an accident or a man-made blunder to set off a chain reaction.
So we've seen how these fires get started. We've examined the patterns of accidental sparks and man-made disasters. It all boils down to one question, doesn't it? If history gives us the blueprint for catastrophe, can we actually use it to avoid the same terrible outcome?
And this, right here, is the most important takeaway. The spark itself, whether it's a bullet, a blunder, or a blockade, it isn't the whole story. Not even close. Its real power, its real danger, comes from the environment it lands in. And right now, with tensions so high everywhere, the world is like a forest in a severe drought. It only takes one tiny spark to set the whole thing ablaze.
And the stakes are absolutely terrifyingly high. This final quote from the director of the CFR report really drives it home. We are now facing a situation that was once thought to be almost impossible. The very real chance of a conflict with 2 other major nuclear-armed powers at the same time.
In the end, history offers us a clear and urgent warning, one that was written in the pain and loss of past generations. It shows us exactly how things fall apart. It gives us the blueprint. The only question left for us is whether we're going to be wise enough to actually read it and choose a different ending for our own story.